This is the Mental Metal Podcast, and I am your host, Coach Thomann. I'm a former athlete, teacher, coach, and athletic director that switched careers after surviving cancer and a stroke in the fall of 2020. But I'm also a dad of a son and a daughter that were successful high school athletes that went on to college. Now I use that experience along with my ICF coaching certification when helping teams, coaches, and athletes from all over the country. Each week, I will pose a specific question that will help coaches of all types better understand mental toughness. In the Mental Metal Podcast, coaches will learn to help their athletes overcome adversity without being the adversity they need to overcome. Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Metal Podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Metal Podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Metal Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Metal Coaching. And welcome back to the Mental Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Thomann, here as always, and I'm here with my guest today, Ryan Weaver. And I'm going to get into a little bit of an intro with Ryan and let him intro himself. But the part that I want to preface a little bit is that this is a little bit of a different episode in the sense that we're looking at things from a different angle. Usually, the people I talk with have a pretty strong background in athletics. I mean, it's an athletics podcast. It's a mental focus in the frame of reference with athletics. Now, I've had people on here that aren't necessarily into athletics all that much, but for the most part it is. And we talk about, if you listen to the show, we talk about how athletics can prepare someone for life and getting mental toughness out of that and using athletics as the avenue for mental toughness. And I love that, and understanding that athletics can be this springboard for this toughness if we allow it. And my guest today is, we're looking at it from a different perspective because, as he'll mention here, we'll talk about, he did a little bit of sports when he was a kid, but not much. But Ryan's a pastor, and only recently got into, I don't want to say athletics, but running, hiking, some of the stuff that I've talked to people about before, and used that to gain his mental toughness and the way he does things later in life. So it wasn't like, it didn't have the same background as most people, and I love that it's never too late. So we're listening to this stuff and people are looking at it through the lens of, what we can do for athletes. And usually athletes means kids, right? Because we're like, kids, my kids or college kids or something like that. But it doesn't have to be. So we can use athletics as this way to use our bodies as a way to gain the mental toughness. And it doesn't matter what age. And I just think that those two, our brain and our body, are so strongly connected that I'm just excited about it. And I just want to preface that before I let Ryan talk that this is a different episode. And I'm pretty stoked about that. So, Ryan, if you would introduce yourself a little bit, give everybody the Cliff Notes version of Ryan Weaver and what you're all about, if you would.
Yeah, so my name is Ryan Weaver. I'm a pastor and health coach, and my wife and I have coached health and nutrition for the last 3 years with a strong desire to see people just build healthy habits, right? We're sort of speaking against a diet culture of just losing weight and arriving, and wanting to coach and train people to just continue to level up. And I'll be honest, the biggest gift I've received in that process is learning about the mindset. And so I mean, I don't know if we'll get into how you and I even connected, but when I heard your content, I was like, I'm not even necessarily an athlete, in the sense that I played kind of sports as a hobby. I was a JV kind of guy. I love tennis, love baseball. I love watching sports. I love watching people compete. I'm all in for that. I'm passionate. I like to scream at the refs. I mean, I like to have a good time around sports, and I love watching people do it, but never until I started getting healthy over the last 3 years. So I've lost 75 pounds. And in that, then took up hiking and running and do mini marathons now for fun. I really enjoy running. And I'm just continuing to find ways to level up. And mental toughness is a huge part of that, right? Mindset is insanely important. So we have 3 kids, and it's interesting because we have a unique situation. Our oldest daughter is 16. My middle child is adopted, a boy, and then I have a young special needs child. She is nonverbal, so that presents challenge as a parent with disabilities. And I am a guy that eats feelings. I eat my emotions. And so for me, getting healthy nutrition opened up a whole new world for me to realize what I was actually capable of. And it's just been fun for the last 3 years to be like, man, at the age of 39, I just decided I'm going to do hard stuff. Like, I'm just going to do hard stuff.
Well, I think that when you say I'm not necessarily an athlete, and you tell me you've done a couple of mini marathons, and you told me you did the Grand Canyon rim to rim in one day. I mean, if you can do that, brother, you're an athlete. You're somebody's version of an athlete. You get what I'm saying? Like, what else is an athlete other than somebody who puts their body into tests and does things in competition? And I don't know how much you feel it is a competition, because mini marathons but you're at least competing against yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that when you say I'm a pastor / a health coach, I don't know if I've ran into anybody that is that combination. That I don't know if I've ran into anybody with that particular slash. You know what I mean? Like pastor / health coach.
Yeah.
On some ways, and you and I were talking about this before, that sometimes those ideas they have to feel like they got to clash a little bit.
Yeah, so I would argue they don't. I mean, think about, I know not everybody watching or listening is from faith background that we're from, maybe, and that's okay. But like the Bible that we read says, love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, body, strength. And so I would argue you can't love God perfectly if you're unhealthy physically. Just like we would never argue like, well, if you're not healthy spiritually, you're not really healthy, right? Like biblically, we would say, well, that's not a healthy Christian. So how can you love someone with your heart, your mind, and your body and your strength when you're not taking care of? I mean, we're eternal beings, I believe. And so our body houses an eternal soul. What would be more important than taking care of that body that houses the eternal part of us?
No, I'm with you. We're created in God's image, and it's like it feels disrespectful to not at least
Right.
honor that honor, right? Or that, yeah.
To try your best. And in preacher pastor culture, everything we do is around food. Every meeting we have is a meal. It's always like, why? Because we're emotional eaters and we carry people's burdens, and we're like, oh well, we can't possibly do counseling without donuts, right? It's like, and then we're all overweight and we're all lazy and tired. And man, I'm telling you, like getting healthy nutrition has cleared my mind. Like people call it a brain fog. Like I didn't realize how foggy my mind was till I started taking care of my nutrition. And I could never have done the Grand Canyon without that clarity and focus.
I was rereading I think around every Christmas I kind of get back into reading the Gospels again, just because it's it's Christmas and all that and whatever. And I can't remember. I'm terrible at always remember what verse and what chapter, but it's really early in Jesus's teaching that he talks about not just talk about fasting, but about the right way to do it and how to do it, and like so much so that it was like it's commonplace, right?
Yeah.
It was like it wasn't like, oh, you have to be eating all the time and do this. Like it's a big part of the prayer life and the fasting, that's a whole nother health thing. But it's just interesting that it's like there are parts in there, and there's things in the Bible about taking care of your body and doing these things, and it gets skipped over sometimes.
And Paul said, I train in 1 Corinthians 9, I think, I don't run aimlessly. He says I beat my body. I train, I box. I don't punch aimlessly into the air. I'm running for an eternal thing. And I think he's saying I've got something inside of me that's going to go long past my life, and I've got to take care of this. I'm not running for a crown or a trophy or a Big Ten title. Those things are wonderful, and that's your language that you're using all the time. It's like, do the next thing to get better, right? Like, just get
Well,
better.
I think that the idea that whenever you want to start to run and do long distances, and like there's a fair amount of suffering in that, right? Like if you want to start, especially if you've done it before, if you've done any long distance running or long hiking, like there's a fair amount of suffering in that, and suffering is okay. Suffering is a good thing. I it's hard to find anybody who suffered more than Paul. I mean, that dude had a run, right? And yet he's like, he is the author of a huge portion of the Bible. Like he's worth listening to, right? And a lot of it is not in spite of the suffering, but I think sometimes because of the suffering.
Yeah. It made him mentally tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I say that all the time, that like there's a couple kinds of adversity. There's the mandatory adversity that we just have to deal with. It's part of life. And then there's the intentional adversity where you start to say, I'm going to go run marathons, or I'm going to run rim to rim, or I'm going to do whatever. And I think that if you continue to put yourself into intentional adversity, the mandatory adversity in life gets a little easier. You start to see the benefits from it. And I don't know. That's how you can see one person on one hand who can handle hard things and one that can't, and not just handle it, but say, hey, it's going to be all right. This is good. I'm going to learn from this, rather than breaking down and not being mentally tough. And I love that when people start to get that and start to develop that mental toughness in their own life. Yeah. Tell me about, you said you've lost 75 pounds and it started about 3 years ago. There had to be a breaking point. There had to be enough is enough.
Yeah. So my dad died at a pretty early age in December. I want to say, this is horrible, I should remember. I think 18. Yeah, 2018. And he was very diabetic, did not take care of himself, and I'm built a lot like him. So every doctor's appointment and checkup, I was always, well, you could be pre-diabetic, you could be, and the year that my father died was rough. The next year was rough. And again, like I said, I've always just coped with food. Like I love buffets. I mean, if I'm feeling down, I want to eat. If you're celebrating, let's eat. And my wife has always been in good shape. It's funny because we look back now that we're coaching and we're like, we didn't even know we were fat, right? Like you get so comfortable that you look at it after this transformation and you go, why did nobody tell me? Like, why did nobody tell me I looked that ridiculous? So all that to say, that was sort of the starting point. And then to be honest, we just had tried everything. Like we had done keto, lost weight, gained it back. We'd done this, lost weight, gained it back. Done this. And for us, Optavia was more than just a health plan. It was a coaching that we got, which is
Yeah.
why I'm loading up on your content, because I'm realizing that we can't do life alone. And you can't diet in the dark. You can't train in the dark. I mean, coaches have coaches. Like pastors have pastors. Like you sit here and go, how could you possibly coach LeBron James? He needs a coach. Like he needs
Yeah.
a coach. And it doesn't have to be somebody better than him, but it's somebody that provides something that he needs.
It's the feedback. It's the feedback and the accountability that we have to have. Anytime that I'm working with somebody and we come up with a plan, I always ask them. It's a question I ask all the time: is like, who's your accountability on? Like, we go through this long plan, we get this, and I say, who's your accountability? And if they answer with, "I'll be my own accountability," I'll just say, "No, you won't. You just won't. You'll come back here in a couple weeks or month, and you'll say, didn't kind of like." We have that, like, we really need that accountability in our lives, and not only do we need it, it's so helpful, and it promotes another thing that's really good is being vulnerable with people, which is another really good thing that you have to accept that you need some help.
Yeah. So for me, the breakthrough 100% was having someone consistently weekly take a phone call with me and actually caring about me and then believing in me. And what I say is I had to borrow their belief. Like I just didn't believe it in myself. And it's interesting because the whole Grand Canyon thing, I'm on a cruise because my wife earned this cruise through Optivia. So it was all these coaches that were thriving in health coaching. And I'm sitting there, the guy that I've seen on Facebook and on Zooms and never really talked to him in person. And we're just talking about life and bucket list stuff. And he said, yeah, in October, me and some friends are going to hike the Grand Canyon. And I go, yeah, that's something I've always thought would be really fun to do. He goes, if you can get to the Grand Canyon, I've got all the details worked out. And my wife's like, he's in. And I'm like, I didn't want to be in. Like, I'll be honest.
No.
I didn't want to be in. And my wife goes, he's in. So then this guy continues to text me every week. Here's what you need to do to train for that. Here's what you need to train for. And I'm telling you right now, I don't think there's very many things I couldn't do. Like if I put my mind to it, I feel pretty tough.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to be able to do that. I had a friend of mine on the podcast. I don't know if you saw the one with Dan Cox, and he runs 100-milers now and stuff like that. And he always says, sign up before you're ready. Sign up before you're ready. And that's scary, right?
Yep.
It's scary because then you're going to look silly. I mean, because there are, let's be honest, Ryan, there's things you can't do, and you might be able to sign up for it and you might fail, but that's okay too.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
No, you fail. Big deal.
50 miles?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That's failure?
Yeah, no, and I mean he ran his 100-miler, and I think he passed out at mile 89. Like, okay. Well done.
What did you
Yeah, right. Well done. No, it's a really good. I just love the idea. When you talk about mindset, talk to me about what has shifted in your mindset in the last 3 years. Not necessarily with food, not necessarily with your running and things like that. What has shifted in your mindset in your life?
Two things. One, that it's okay to be proud of myself. There's a lot of shame in my life. So 2 years ago, I decided I needed to deal with some trauma, and I was going to do a 12-hour walk. And so I just walked. This is going to mean nothing to you, but I walked from Wabash, Indiana to Marion, Indiana. I met my mom who lives in Marion, Indiana. That is about a 13-mile walk. I met my mom there, and she gave me a police report that I didn't want to have, but I needed to deal with something that happened when I was a kid. And she handed it to me. We didn't talk about it. And I cried and walked the rest of the way home. And I read this police report, and I read some facts and things that had happened in my life. And I had to wrestle with myself and God. I had no music. I had nothing. I had another 7 hours to process hurt and pain and grief. And I got home, and honestly, I was overwhelmed with the amount of pride I had that in 12 hours, I cleared more than 30 miles walking. I was sore. I was tired. And people are like, oh, wow, that's really great. And I'm like, yeah. And I got to deal with some stuff. And my wife looked at me and just said, I'm proud of you, like, for being tough enough to deal with that. Like most people would just brush that under the rug and not want to face their demons. And I did. And it's still tough. So 2 things happened. I learned it's okay to be proud of something you did. There's nothing wrong with that. And I can do more than I believe I can. I have to borrow it from somewhere else. So you're a mentor to me. You may not even know it or want to sign up for that, but I'm borrowing belief from you. I'm listening.
Absolutely.
I'm listening to your belief and going, well, if Matt can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. I think that you hit on something there that I love when you were talking about, I was tough about it. And so it's funny that somebody could have, I can picture some guy driving along in an F-150 and seeing you walking alongside of the road, crying your eyes out and going, Look at that guy. Look at that wuss, right? And you were facing some trauma and dealing with some trauma to get done with it, which to me, that is the toughness versus, I don't know why I picked a guy in an F-150, just because it represents our idea of tough, right?
On and
Yeah. That versus this guy who is making fun of you is taking everything that's wrong with this life and all the trauma, and we all have it. We have all these situations, and just puts it under the rug, whips it, and says, I don't, I'm tough because I don't deal with that. And that is not what it is.
no.
And that's what I want to change. That's that it's okay. Like you said, face your demons and deal with it. That's a whole lot tougher than just hiding stuff under the rug.
Yeah. And that is the stigma that has to change around this. Vulnerability doesn't mean weakness, for sure.
No, absolutely. It's the opposite, really. It is. I think, how does it, when you change this mindset a little bit and you deal these things, how does it affect your preaching? How long have you been preaching, and I'm just curious how it affected your preaching?
I've been leading for 8 years, and what it's done, I don't know, maybe this is a tough thing to say, but like there's not all leaders are the same. Like, they're not all created equal. And and there's just something about when a leader gets healthy, everyone else wins, right? Like,
Oh,
everyone around them wins. Like, you're like the 5 people you surround yourself with. Like, put yourself around great people, and if you achieve half of what they achieve, you win. And so, how it's affected my teaching is just confidence. It takes the pressure off. I've learned mentally that if I just do the right things consistently and do the right habits, like, everything else will take care of itself. Like, I used to always focus on the finished product. Was it going to be creative enough? Was it going to be clever enough? Were they going to like the joke, like the story? Are they going to connect with it? And I'm now just leading out of who I am, if that makes sense.
it
Like,
does.
I'm just teaching you what I'm learning. It's almost like I'm preaching to myself, and if someone else gets something out of it, that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not there to entertain you or tell you what I think you want to hear. I'm telling you what I'm learning and studying and doing, and I'm letting you see how it's changing my life, and then I'm offering a chance for that to change your life too. So that's why when you say, like, the pastor coach thing, I'd like to reframe it where we are coaching people in life. Right?
I'm with you. I love it. It's just, when I say that they kind of butt heads, I'm telling you that's only stigma, and that's society, kind of the way it goes. Right. Not, I love what you're doing, but I'm just telling you that's not, they don't necessarily, I'm sure you've probably gotten some pushback on some of the ways that you do things.
100%. You
Yeah.
you were okay. You were great the way you were. You don't have to lose any more weight. I mean, all the time. Listen, it's not acceptable for a preacher to murder. It is acceptable for one to be obese.
There are things that I know we're getting a whole rabbit hole, opening a can of worms here, but there are like deadly sins that we are like so against, and others that we're like, oh, it's okay.
That's respect.
It's fine. Let's yeah. It's like, maybe not.
Tell me, how does that translate? Because that has to also translate to athletics, right?
Yeah,
like,
no, it's
getting to that.
Well, no, it's the same thing with coaching, right? The way we talk about there's old school ways and things that there are so many things that just become commonplace, right? That it's just, oh, well, that's just the way it is, and you can't change that. That's the way it is, and it's the whole idea about thinking like a coach has to. Well, I got to break them down before I build them up. Well, all you're doing is taking a kid and making them to conform to your ideas and have them do it exactly the way you want them to do it, and you want to make these robots, which there's a lot of trauma in that sometimes, but we say that that's okay, right? Well, and I think it's the same kind of things. It's just like we get certain things we give a pass on, and certain things we don't, and it's nothing other than culture and just society, right? But whenever you go against one of those, boy, you hear it.
And you talk about how does it impact my. I mean, I don't mean to sound cavalier about this because I do. Well, anyone that knows me knows I really care what people think about me. I mean, I'm an Enneagram 9. I mean, that's
Yeah.
part of learning is learning that my only objective is to please God, but I want to please everybody else along the way. But I'm just telling you, I just don't care if you don't like the way it was delivered. If it's true, it's true, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want to do it sensitively. I want to do it lovingly. I used to put so much pressure. Rewatch my sermon. Question: was I too hard on that? Was I sensitive to somebody that might be there that was new and would disagree with me? And that no one wants to hurt anybody. You don't want to hurt any of your players, like as a coach. But
Yeah.
imagine how much time you could spend trying to make sure you didn't hurt anyone's feelings.
Well, it's funny when you say that about you were so worried about the end result of your sermon.
Yeah.
Right. And you're so worried about did they all accept it? Did they get all the jokes? Did they get all the illustrations? And that to me feels like whenever a coach or a player looks at just whether or not we won the game. And if you listen to me at all the time, you know that is like just focusing on whether or not you win or not is one of the worst things you can do. There goes my belief. We won't take that as an omen here that my belief sign just fell. But yeah, no, it's not okay. It's just a bad job of taping it up here in my new studio. No, but what I was saying is like just focusing on the win. It's problematic because then we look at the end result. But if we want to get the end result we want, we have to focus on what we do in the moment and the things that we can control. So when you're talking about preaching in a way and the things that you know are be truthful and I'm sure that you're preaching, from the Bible and you're doing these things right. If it doesn't always get picked up the right way, it's okay. But
I was just gonna say, you ever coached? I mean, you've coached, so you ever coached or done a game or something, and somebody comes up to you and says something, and you want to say like, "That's what you got out of that."
Oh, all the time. Well, I used to teach too, and it's like you will spend. It's funny how you say that because you'll put so much effort into a practice or something, and then somebody will say something, and you're like, "They did not get me at all, at all."
But then I think that's where I'm at. Is I just do the right thing, and if somebody doesn't get it, they're just not going to get it.
Yeah, and I think that's because anytime that you're talking to somebody or coaching somebody or preaching to somebody, I mean, there's two parts of it, right? The way you give it, and then the way people have to be in the right spot to receive things, and that can be coaching, that could be preaching, that could be teaching, that could be everything. And you can do what you can do, but if you're doing things the right way, that it's the right way, and you feel like it's you're doing it right, you have to start there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mental Model Coaching is driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that will allow athletes and coaches to grow, play, and live in a positive way. We offer a range of coaching and professional development services. First and foremost, we offer individual mental coaching for athletes, and it's easily the most efficient and effective way to help athletes replace fear and anxiety with positivity and confidence. Mental Model Coaching has helped middle school setters to high school lacrosse middies to D1 offensive linemen. If you have an athlete that needs to improve their mindset in athletics, mental coaching is the answer. We also offer team coaching, which uses the same concepts as individual mental coaching, but applies them in a group setting. Team bonding outings are great, but they do nothing to address the thoughts and feelings that can derail a team. Team coaching does address that, and it's a great option for helping your team grow. Finally, Mental Model Coaching offers social, emotional learning, professional development programs for educators and coaches. There are self-paced online programs, there are virtual coaching options, and even in-person seminars available. This PD will help increase the mental health of your staff and eventually your student athletes and the culture of your school. All of the Mental Model Coaching programs have the same goal: Our mission is to help athletes and coaches develop a resilient and spirited mindset that will help them confidently face any obstacles or challenges they seek, regardless of their situation. If you would like to see the same in your athlete, your team, and your staff, contact Coach Thomann for more information. So I want to talk a little bit about, I love that you're doing the health coaching, and then that's how you and I cross paths a little bit. I was back doing a seminar. It was online, but I was a guest speaker at a seminar through Lark Song, who is the shout out to Lark Song and Megan Gilmore. That's where I got my coaching certification. Great place. I've had Megan on the podcast before. It's great. And then you and I, just after that, I spoke a little bit, and we talked a little bit after that, and now we're talking here. But I just love that connection, how you're a pastor and a coach, and you actually were seeking some coach training, which is really cool.
Yeah. So one of the things I coach with nutrition is stacking habits, right? I mean,
Yep.
you just stack your habits up, right? So like if I'm running on the treadmill, I'm listening to something. Sometimes it's music, like sometimes it just is, but a lot of times it's like someone teaching me something. And so that's what drew me into you, is just like this content is so good. Like it's so good. And it's actually more applicable to the spiritual world than we might even think. And I'm getting lots of sermons. I'm getting lots of nutrition guidance. You're the first guy that's ever talked to me about being tough. Like
Yeah.
the whole idea of metal, forging, like all of that was like, it was just new to me. And so, yeah, when I heard you at the Lark Song day of training, and yes, they do a great job of putting out great coaches.
Oh yeah.
I was just like, I'm downloading this podcast. I'm following it. Someday soon, I'm going to buy a hoodie. I mean, like, I'm on here because I want people to know you. I mean, to be straight up, I don't think that mental toughness is addressed in such a holistic way anywhere else. It's either like mental health, which is basically fighting anxiety and depression, or it's like how to be bad. You know what I mean? Like, and you're just zoned in on like the athletics, the training, the competition, and that's good for everybody. I love it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks. I appreciate that. I love to know that I'm reaching somebody, and it is on purpose, because when I talk about the word metal is the ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. And to me, it's that word. Like there's like toughness and facing adversity. It's a spiritual connection, right? And you can't do, like, I think so many people think that they are tough and resilient, and they absolutely hate their day. They hate themselves, and they're miserable. And I'm like, one, it's not long-term toughness, because it's going to break down. You can't hate everything forever. Right? It doesn't go. But if you can connect toughness to your spirit and your soul, man, you've got it. You've got it. And like, there's nothing, like you said, when you feel like there's nothing you can't do, there you go. I think it's just all it takes is time and effort and a positive attitude. And I know how cheesy that sounds. I get it, but it's the truth.
It's simple.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, it's there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing. It's simple to do, but not easy to pull off.
Yeah. If it was easy, we would all be doing it. And I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I really want to encourage anyone. It's like I'm 39 before I would even. I mean, when you do the BMI and the InBody stuff, I was never in the average athletic zone ever. I'm 39 years old. Just said, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Well, what else can I do? Right. I mean, my wife is like, maybe I should, not me, but her, like, maybe I should do bodybuilding. I mean, like, what's possible, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you do after the Grand Canyon? Do I do a full marathon? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You can continue to level up and do it, but what I'm loving is talking to you about you, and you are doing this, and you're seeing that, like, I love the idea that it's not a conflict with your spirituality and your relationship with God. It's not a conflict. It's like, this should all be there together.
I mean, what is sanctification? It's trying to be most like the person you think is perfect, right? So I guess I'm sitting here going, who's the strongest 42-year-old man I know? If he can do it, I can do it, right? If you can conquer cancer, unfortunately, if I ever get it, I can borrow that belief, right?
Yeah.
Like I can go, I know someone about my age or close to it who fought like a warrior and got out of it. So I'm not giving up. I mean, we need each other. Like it's
Yeah.
not an isolated island, and we can compete against ourselves. I'm not competing against you. The stuff you've done, I'll never be able to do.
Well, I think that that's just it. Is it's not a it's what's so interesting is we're talking about the benefits of competition, but then it's also we're not competing with others. We are, but it's I don't know. I gotta flesh that out. There's a little bit of there's something there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful watching Michigan and Michigan and Ohio State after the game congratulating. I mean, that's a weird thing.
Yeah. Well, they didn't do a good job of it. It was clearly things went awry. But yeah, no, I love good competition, but then I also like to I think the gratitude has to come with competition because you can't it's interesting even if you beat somebody in competition, you have to have gratitude for the person you beat or you wouldn't even have the competition.
Right.
And I know that's a weird thing, but I mean, if you compete long enough, you're getting beat too. You're going to have bad days and things
And
aren't going to go well.
and is it possible to find gratitude in that? Because it shows you
Yeah.
it shows you what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can score 70 points in a game. That's possible? Like, okay. So, yeah.
I love it. And you know what? I loved your idea also. So when you talk, you have to be okay with to be proud of yourself a little bit. I think that is I don't know if it's just a healthy Midwestern thing to just like grit and never accept when you've done things well. Maybe it's not Midwestern at all. I don't know, but it feels like you get what I'm saying. It's like you don't even when somebody tells you, oh, you do a good job. Hey, good. You had a great game today, whatever. And we just like go, whatever. No big deal. Like we don't ever I think that's a culture thing too, to not accept the fact that we've done well and recognize, okay, we did well. I did well. Right.
I love that. That's a great thought. Because I'm thinking, what if I do it too, right? You come off and somebody goes,
Yep.
hey, good sermon today. And you go, oh, and it's like, oh, I got to deflect the glory, right? Like, oh,
Yep.
what is wrong with me saying, hey, you played a great game, Dan, and you going, you know what? I worked real hard today. I did play really good defense.
Yeah.
What's
It's
wrong with
weird.
that?
It's weird. And it feels really awkward. But here's the thing. Here's the really cool thing. And shout out again to Megan Gilmore because she taught me this. Think about when we tell somebody thank you or we give somebody a compliment. Hey, Ryan, you did a great job at your run today. You had a great time. Really proud of you. And you say something like, well, yeah, but I didn't get the time that I wanted. Right? You take all of the glory out of me giving you that compliment. You take all this wind out of my sails to feel like I'm like think about it. Anytime that you give somebody some gratitude or you give somebody a compliment and they deflect it, you're like, okay, I guess I was wrong. Right.
Yeah.
And you actually take kind of the wind out of their sails. Like if somebody gives you a compliment, the best thing you can do is just say, hey, thanks. Right. Hey, thanks. Look them right in the eye and said, hey, thanks. I appreciate it. Right. But it's something weird. It's something like we're trained not to do. And I don't know why that is.
And with criticism in coaching, if you correct your player or and they then come with an excuse, same thing.
Same thing.
Isn't the best scenario if someone says, hey, you kind of missed on that, to say like, you know what, I never thought of it like that. I'm going to consider that.
Absolutely.
That's
Criticism and compliments both, I feel like they should be seen as information. Right? Now, are some people wrong? Some people are absolutely dead wrong. But so you can suss that out later, right? Somebody gives you criticism, somebody gives you a compliment, just be like, "Hey, thanks. I appreciate that. I appreciate your input. I love it. I will look into it. Thank you." And mean it, right? Don't blow them off and mean it. Be like, "Hey,
and then,
yeah." And if somebody and never discount the way you're seen in somebody's eyes when they like, hey, that was a great race today. Be like, hey, thanks, I appreciate that. And what it does or what it doesn't do is anytime that somebody gives us a compliment or we're not a little bit proud of ourselves for something we've done really hard, we miss the opportunity to grow our confidence even more, right? If you're not recognizing and celebrating what you've done well, then you're not going to recognize what you're doing well. And then that's problematic. So if you're going to put in the time and effort, then celebrate the wins. You have to a little bit. But that's going to feel really awkward at first.
Celebrate today and go back to work tomorrow, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the trick though, right? Is to celebrate what you've done well, but then don't rest on your laurel, right? That's the trick, right?
Right. That is.
Yeah. Oh man, coach or Ryan, coach, pastor, whichever way you're going. It's what else are we missing? Anything else? Now you tell me that you read 30 to 50 books a year. I've always said that readers are my favorite people. Because I think that if you're reading, you're like picking up information and it just makes you think constantly, right? Sometimes that's good and bad. How about a book recommendation?
There's a really great book called Leadership Pain. I can't remember the author at the time. I read it when I was in a dark season in ministry. I think it may be geared towards preaching and ministry types of things, but I think it translates. So like the idea was if we knew the pain, like if we would have had the pain revealed of what we were doing, we probably wouldn't have done it. And I think that translates into like your life and my life as coaches, as parents. I mean, you're a parent too. I mean, right? If you knew all of the things that you were going to do poorly, we would have thought twice. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm speaking for myself. It's about some of the things, but unfortunately, we don't get that information. So we grow from suffering and we grow from pain, and leading is painful. I mean, I am sure you have been cussed at by parents. I mean, whatever. Like just like preachers have had emails, can give the best sermon of their life on a Sunday and have a cancel culture all over them on Twitter on Monday, right? Like it is a cruel feedback world. And if you don't agree with somebody, I mean, we're not talking about anything. It's really painful, but it's worth it. I think that Leadership Pain was a really good book that way. I've been diving into, because you've kind of got me on this leadership thing. There's several books by these Navy SEALs guys, and this is called Extreme Ownership.
Oh, absolutely. He's one. Jocko's fantastic. Jocko Willink and Leaf, those guys. Those books are, you can't, like, yeah, I'm with you.
If that doesn't translate to athletics, right? I mean, one of my biggest pet peeves. I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers right now. It's everyone else's fault that this Jets team is doing.
Yeah.
And no one wants to watch that, dude. We think you're one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. We're tired of you. Like, I want you to come on the camera and take some ownership, right? When we came out of COVID, like me as a leader in the church, I made some bad decisions during COVID. But I came out of that and owned it, right? And said we should have done this differently.
Yeah, but
church is healthier for that. And that book, I mean, I'll read it again.
Oh, Extreme Ownership's fantastic. One of the things I love that Jocko has said is, if you've heard him talk about the idea of good, like anytime something goes bad, like, hey, I didn't get this or this didn't happen, and just respond with good. It's more opportunity, opportunity. And we talk about mindsets, right? Because then nothing beats you, right? And again, I know how cheesy it sounds, that whole idea about, oh, I either win or I learn, right? But I know how cheesy it is, but I don't know why we don't have any other option, Ryan. Like, what other option do we have other than, like, otherwise you just like give up, and that's no good.
And I just don't care if it's cheesy. If it sticks and I remember it,
I don't either. I'm the same way.
We had a janitor at a place that my wife and I worked for a while, and kids would complain to him and say, "Oh, life's not fair." And his famous line was, "That's wonderful. And they're like, why? And it's like, because they're preparing you for life. What do you mean? Well,
Yeah.
life is fair, right? Like the idea that
It's
everything
good.
my way is not life. So I guess if you're learning that now, that's wonderful.
Yeah. No, I agree. I love the idea. Um, so what, now that you've talking about your transformation a little bit over the next 3 years and do this, I got to ask, what's next?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It
It's
really is.
loaded, isn't it? But I'm just curious. You got anything on the horizon or anything you're thinking about?
So I'm very goal driven, and I lost a lot of weight, but because of the way I'm built, pre-diabetic, I carry most of my weight in my stomach. And so what I'm learning is to go to the next level nutrition wise, I have to be hyper focused on macros. I also need to introduce strength training, which is completely new to me. I love cardio. And so I'm listening to like Mind Pump, trying to learn some of the science behind this. And this is going to sound ridiculous, but like I want to cut my body fat by 5%. My goals right now are almost like sculpting, which for a preacher, oh, isn't that vain? He cares what his body looks like. But like, I don't care. I'm trying to get tough. I'm trying to get jacked. I'm trying to do the best version of myself that I can do. One of my weird goals, I mean, I want to run with my shirt off.
Yeah, right? Like just
Not be embarrassed. I mean, that's straight up. Like, I got like a little bit of flabby because of when you big, you lose 75 pounds, you got skin, you got to tone up. So it's a different thing. Like to say I want to run, I'm going to do a half marathon in September, but I'm going to do that just because it keeps me running. But my goals this year, there's two of them. One is silence. I drown myself with noise. I sleep with music on in my ears. So I'm this um 1800 minutes of silence. Like, and I'm going to log it. I'm really obsessive about logs. In 2025, I'm going to have over 1800 minutes of silence. No music, not praying, like nothing. And then I'm going to cut 5% body fat, read over 30 books at least, and run over 750 miles. If I
love
do those
it.
things, I'll be better. So,
And if you fail, you at least moved. Yeah, you'll be better, right? That's the best part, right? You making these goals. The only thing you can't do is quit on it, right? I'm telling the idea of all that silence. I'm going to be honest with you. That scares me to death.
terrifying.
Of all the things you just said, I'm like, I can do that. I can do that. Or that. That much silence. I've struggled with that. Like it would be like when I was recovering from my stroke, and it would like I could, or when I was actually it was before my stroke and fighting cancer and stuff, and just all the stress. I was fine during the day. It was when everybody went to bed and everything went that the silence is deafening.
So I mean, I joke because I listen to records and music all the time. I'll joke like, "Oh yeah, that sermon was written with this heavy metal music in the background," and it's like funny. People are like, "How did you write that? Listening to that?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just what I was into that day." Um,
Yeah.
all the time, music is always going for me, and I would argue, going back to mental toughness, like we don't want to deal with our internal thoughts.
Oh no, no.
And the first 5 minutes of silence, your mind, you're thinking, what am I going to eat? Blah, blah, blah. You go past 5 minutes, I'm noticing after 5 minutes, it's ugly.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what am I doing with my life? Like you start having some deep thoughts.
It's shutting down and doing meditation where you're not thinking about anything. That's a real practice skill. And that's what, so when people say, I used to laugh when people talk about practicing meditation. I'm like, what do you mean practicing? You just do it. And I'm like, no, it takes a lot of practice to be able to just sit there and think about nothing. It takes a lot of practice, and it's really good for you, but it's hard to do, really hard to do.
Just like sleep is important for your health, and people don't think
Mm-hmm.
that. It's like if you're not
Yeah.
getting sleep, that's important. Like,
There's so many things, right? So I commend you for challenging the stigma on a lot of things, Ryan. I really enjoy it. Yeah, no, it's really cool. I enjoy it. So
for the content you're offering, it's incredible. I really believe in what you're doing and want to encourage it and support it because it's not being talked about in the way that you're talking about it. It's super. And I love like those D1 linemen and stuff that you're talking to. I feel like you're giving a voice to some of the toughest people that get overlooked.
Absolutely.
Female referee, like that was one of the most riveting podcasts I've ever listened to.
No, she was fantastic, right? And it's just like, but I think there's a lot of people out there that doing it the right way, but they don't, like you say, they just don't. It's the stigma is not to do it that way.
Yeah.
But we give a lot of credit and a lot of credence to people that are still doing it the wrong way, right? Just big, yelling, toughen, and that's what we think. That's our definition, and that's not it. So yeah, I love it. So last question I always ask: what did I miss? What did I ask you that I? What did I not ask you that I should have, Ryan?
I just wanted you. I want to be proud of myself and show you that I did the homework.
That's nice. I love that. I love that. That's from my last podcast doing the ACE. We got 3 things. You got to have the you'll show me your piece of paper there. I love that.
So you said, what do you not ask? The biggest takeaway in anything is do the next right thing. If someone tells you to do something, do it. Just try it. Right? Like when I heard you need to drink 120 ounces of water a day, I just started doing it. I didn't know why. I didn't know what it was going to do. Like, if I'm supposed to do that, let's do it.
Yeah.
But Ace, I love this. Is this flipping it or is it going to be weird? I don't know.
No, it's good. We're good.
It looks weird to me. So I just put attitude. Like, what was the question? What you want it to be?
So I think that, yeah, absolutely. Maybe I need to do better, but it's like, so there's 3 things that you can control: the things that we think, the things that we say, and the things that we do. Right.
Yeah.
So to me, that was attitude, communication, and effort. And then what I like to do, and anytime I'll work with somebody, is find what do you want your attitude to be? What do you want your communication to be? And what do you want your effort to be? And have your own words.
Yeah. So that's what I did. This is not where I think it's at. This is what I want it to be.
Oh, I always, it's what we want, right?
Say in 5 years, I want you to say, dude, he is optimistic. Like he's one of the most positive, optimistic people. He believes everyone can get better. Like that's what I want my attitude to be, whether it's spiritual, physical, like borrow the belief that I have in you because I believe in you. Like I believe you can do something better than what you're doing right now. And I want to be super clear in my communication. I struggle with that because I love to talk. I have a little bit of probably ADD. Like I said, you can say we're going to talk about this. We may not. That's just how I work. I hate it. I want to get better. I want people to say, man, he's clear. He's concise. He gets to the point. I know exactly what he wants done or what he thinks that I should do or what I want him to do. And then effort-wise, I picked the word steady. I don't know, maybe steadfast, consistent. I know some people are just big time, like they want to just be grit guys. I just want to show up all the time. Like, and when I mess up, I just want to show up again. Like because my habit has always been to quit. Like, well, I missed. So I just quit. That's what I did in high school. I didn't make varsity. I thought I should have made varsity. Instead of serving a year in JV and making varsity as a sophomore, I just said, screw this. I regret that big time. Like that doesn't show any kind of steadfast effort at all. That's not who I want to be. Like I want people to be like, the guy just showed up. Like he hobbled across the finish line and then he showed up again and did it again. Like, and when he told me I should do it, he encouraged me. He was optimistic, clear about the plan and the goals and the dreams. And I don't know.
I love that. I love that what you picked up from that was that you have to write, because coaching is all about recognizing where you are and determining where you want to be, right? So you chose your 3 words to not the things that you are, but things that you want to be. And that's, again, that's to me, that's toughness, is to be able to recognize what you're not good at and say, here's what I want to get good at, and actually, and know that that's going to be a struggle.
It's
right.
It's what I want my son to say at my funeral, right?
Yeah. Right.
He was optimistic. He believed in what I could do. He was very clear about how much he loved me, how much he believed in me. And he always showed up. If I can finish.
And as we mentioned before, now your job is to start recognizing when you embody those principles and actually celebrate it a little bit. Hey, I was clear today. I was optimistic today, right? You start recognizing when you do these things, and then that's how you start seeing the growth. And that's coaching. That's neuroplasticity. That's changing the way you operate, which is what it's all about, man. Yeah. So, man, Ryan, it's been fantastic. It's been fantastic talking to you. I can't wait to put this together and get this podcast out here. And I know that you've got a good following. You'll get it out there, and I just love it.
hey, I appreciate it, and anything I can do to help you out, let's keep forging metal, right?
Sounds good. I love it. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. I sure appreciate it. Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they could still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great. They're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Metal Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website and get started on the journey to a more confident and successful athlete with Mental Metal Coaching. Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Metal Coaching. So just a little bit of a different guest there, but a lot of the conversation is the same. Ryan Weaver, he's a pastor and a health coach. So definitely a lot of the things, I mean, he's definitely talking about, he has to work with psychology. You know, anytime somebody's being a pastor or a health coach, those things have in common. We're talking about changing people's minds and changing the way they think about things and seeing things differently. So it definitely fits with what we're talking about. And what I always talk about, neuroplasticity and changing the way we think about things, is just a slightly different guest. But it definitely ties in with how important, as you can see with him, like his journey to, you know, gaining his toughness, his mental toughness came through his body and starting to do things athletically, taking care of his body from a health perspective and what he's eating a little bit. And I think it's such a strong connection. I think if we're going to start working on our minds, I think we can work our bodies and do those things together. It's why I love working with athletes, and it's why I work with coaches, because those things athletics is such a great format for forging that metal and creating that toughness. A couple things from that interview some questions I think are worth noting that I picked up. So many things we could go from that interview with Ryan. A lot of good tidbits there, but we really talked a lot about what is toughness, and we talked a lot about what is society's definition of stigma. You know, it's what we see in the commercials, it's what we see in the movies, and it's not toughness, it's ignorance, or it's, you know, not paying attention to, and it's just ignoring things. You got pain, you got trauma, you got issues, and just being like, I'm going to take that, push that down, push that down, and just keep being miserable and not enjoying my life. And it's not healthy, it's not productive, it's not fruitful, it's just not what we're after. And I think you know that, because I think it's easier. It's easy. It's not tough. It is easier to just ignore things, hide them, and not deal with them. I mean, it's the same, like if we want to look at it from a medical perspective, I've been there where I have ignored some things that I should have checked, gone to the doctor for, uh, saying in my mind, or what I would say is like, oh, it's too far from my heart to kill me. I'm this tough guy. I don't go to the doctor. Well, that's baloney. It's nonsense. It's you scared what the doctor's going to say and what you're going to have to deal with. It's what it is. So it's a lot tougher. I mean, I'm not telling you to be a hypochondriac and call the doctor over everything, but there are situations that we just ignore, that it's a whole lot easier to just, not worry about it and ignore it than it is to go see what's going on from a medical perspective, from a mental perspective, and go and getting some help. So the first question I'd love you to ask is, do you associate toughness with the loud, outward, movie, Hollywood type definition of toughness? Or is it something quieter? Is it more like Ryan was talking about, persistence and just showing up when it's hard and dealing with trauma and dealing with things? And I think you're going to find that the things you really don't want to do, that are really difficult to do, are quieter things, and they're less celebrated things, or they're things that don't really fit with our definition of toughness. All right. So look at your life and then determine what are the tough things that I am doing, what are the tough things that I'm not doing, and figuring out where you are on that. And then also, like, once you define what mental toughness should be for you, how are you doing? Are you living up to that definition? Are you doing the things that you know you need to do that would make you better, or are you ignoring them and paying attention to the things that are important, even though they're hard? How are you doing on that? And once you start analyzing that, and then of course, one thing I talked to Ryan about in there, and he mentioned that it was okay to be proud of himself. Once you start figuring out what your definition of toughness is and start paying attention to making progress on being tougher, how do you celebrate those little wins? How do you talk about how I'm getting better at things? And it could be something you're doing, as he was talking about like something you do with running or athletic, or what you're eating or not eating, your health. But then it's also a mental thing. It's something, giving yourself a little bit of credit for what you're doing and really focusing on that progress over perfection, and not so worried about the end result. Do the things that you know will produce the end result you want. That is where your focus has to be. And that's tough. Being tough is focusing, understanding what you need to do, and then making that be your goal and something you work on. So just some really good stuff there in that interview. I enjoyed talking to Ryan. Just an interesting cat, man. The fact that he is a preacher, a pastor, but he's also doing health coaching, and just it's whenever I started talking to him, I was like, I'm really going to like talking to this guy, because he sees things differently, which is what I think we need to do when it comes to our mental health and toughness, is look at things a little bit differently, because some of the ways we're doing it now is obviously not working. We laud the wrong things, and we don't celebrate the correct things. And we need to do that. We need to really pay attention to and celebrate doing the little tough things that aren't always cool, like being vulnerable, all those things. It was great to talk to him. So, and just a reminder, I love that you're listening. Thanks I really appreciate the likes, the shares, the comments. If I reach you at all, if I make you think, I just want you to it's all I want is share it, comment, send me an email, send me some ideas, tag me in a post, suggest guests, all those things. I really appreciate it. And then also remember, I run this podcast. It's a free resource, but I run a business on mental coaching. I work with athletes. I work with educators. I work with coaches. I work with small groups. I even get into the corporate world a little bit and work with teams. Bring me into work with your business team. I've done those as well. If you like what I'm saying at all, reach out. I would love to see how I can make a customized program of coaching, either individual or group coaching for you or your team. If you feel like, hey, you like this stuff and it would really help you or your business or your team, get a hold of me. We'll see what we can do. And I'd love to help you out. So that's it for me. That's the end of this podcast, and I appreciate it. And always remember, this has been the Mental Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and I always remember, forge your metal. Thanks again for listening to the Mental Metal Podcast, produced by Coraggio Media, sponsored by QuickCut, a video management platform for every level of play, and by Mental Metal Coaching, helping athletes learn to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way. The Mental Metal Podcast is created each week to help players develop more mental toughness, and that is something that will help all of us. So help me out and like and share the Mental Metal Podcast with your friends. Until next time, keep forging your metal.